Good morning, everybody, and welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Tuesday, the 4th of March. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined on this lovely morning by Chris Jack. How's it going, Chris?
Not too bad, not bad. Yourself?
Yeah, all good. Thank you. Well, I say all good. First of all, folks, apologies if you're unhappy with the picture of Philip Clement in the background. I've got the old green screen on. It's because I'm not in my humble abode this morning, and it's a bit stroby the light. So I've popped that green screen on the background, which hopefully doesn't just make your viewing experience any less than what it would have been anyway. But I've had a right few days. Broke my phone on Saturday night, dropped a dumbbell on it. So I had to get a new phone yesterday. And those of you that have ever been locked out of iCloud or Apple, you can feel my pain because I have to wait 6 days before I get my password reset. So it's been a bit of a nightmare for me and old and Clark Towers, but we'll soldier on anyway. Of course, people don't give a jot, I'd imagine, about my phone issues, and they want to talk all things Rangers. But before we do that, just a bit of admin, folks. As you all know, we've got a new sponsor. The Rangers Review is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, and head over to S1 Jobs and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh, and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. So start your search today. So there you go. Right, let's talk Rangers, Chris, because after the debacle, another really disappointing results at the weekend. Positive news yesterday, it's fair to say, off the back of your great piece at the end of last week on the takeover and the state of play. Now being reported that a deal has been agreed in principle, and there will now be a period of due diligence carried out. The US consortium, the 49ers Enterprises, led by Parag Marathi, alongside Andrew Kavanagh, who's executive chairman of Pareto Health. They're leading this consortium. If they succeed, they will take a 51% stake in Rangers, and it looks like it's edging ever closer, Chris.
It feels like a transfer story, this one, because you have the story of the initial interest, and then you've got a story of bids being made, and then it kind of edges ever closer, and every update is kind of seized upon by a support who are just desperate for good news, and Rangers fans are clearly desperate for this deal to go ahead. I think the piece we had, I think it was Friday morning, I had that like a piece on the site that can explain that piece almost. It's not really moved on an awful lot since then. Some of the terminology may be fresh, but in terms of the actual process, we're still within this kind of fortnight or so, or a couple of days into that now, while the paperwork is being drawn up. Once that is all finalised or to be put to each of the parties, they'll then go through a process. Now everybody will have their time to kind of go through that and make sure that the deal is right for them. But everything is certainly in place. Everything is moving in the right direction on this deal. I think, as we've reported quite extensively on the site over the last couple of weeks, as we've said on various shows, as I've said on the Talking Point with Stevie as well. This could be a really transformative agreement for Rangers. Coming 10 years after regime change, we're now on the brink of more regime change at Ibrox, and it's a change that has to be made for the good of the club in a business sense, certainly in a sporting sense, and as I touched on there, it's something that the Rangers fans are clearly hugely excited about. So everything seems to be pointing in the right direction. It looks like this deal will get done, but I think, as we said in the days after it, let's not get too excited, let's not rush it, let's not push it. These deals clearly, I think certainly because of the number of Rangers shareholders that are selling either all or some of their stakes, there's a lot of moving parts to this. It's not a case of, well, one person is buying the club from another person. There's a lot in play at present, but there's certainly a willingness and a real eagerness from all parties to get this deal done. So fingers crossed, we will soon be able to talk about this in terms of it being done rather than it looking like it will be done.
Interesting stuff indeed. I'll address this before we move on. Neil says, adjusted my phone there and realised it was Derek's top that was the interference. And Bill says, Derek looks like he's ready for the 2:30 at Willerby. When you're recording the Rangers review at 9:30 and you're in the stalls at 2:30. Yeah, absolutely. So it is a tad bright, so apologies if it is affecting your eyesight, folks. My top this morning. Lots of interesting points off the back of what this could mean for Rangers. Chris, supporters quite rightly getting excited at the prospect of new owners in place and what that could mean. I think it's, as you touched on, this has been required for some time. New investment, new ideas, a freshness that has really been missing at Rangers. And of course, we only have to look across the city. Celtic have been allowed to rack up the trophies and overtake Rangers in terms of the trophy count as well. Completely damning on the current regime for me to allow that to happen. Hopefully this can put Rangers back on a bit of an even keel. Do you think that's fair? Are supporters right to get a bit excited? What can this takeover, what could it mean for Rangers as early as next season, perhaps?
I think it has to mean fresh investment in the squad, obviously, and there will clearly be a new manager brought in. There will be a new sporting director brought in. Josh has a piece on that on the website this morning, kind of outlining that process and why Rangers, just a couple of seasons after ripping it up, that particular model, why they're now deciding to go back to that particular model and why they believe that's the right one for the longer term health and benefit of the club. So there will be another raft of appointments over these next few months. There will be another raft of signings. Now this squad has shown that it's not up to the task. There will be players who leave at the end of their contracts, but players who just can leave through natural selection by the manager. There clearly need to be more reinforcements brought in.
Yeah,
but I think if you look at how 49ers Enterprises have operated at Leeds, yes, they've clearly spent a lot of money on the wage bill there. I think it's the highest or second highest in Championship history. The highest was last season when they also just missed out on promotion. So they're clearly investing in the squad, but they're not going like way over the top in terms of transfer fees and saying, well, there's X number of millions, let's just go and spend it on some Premier League players and we'll throw everything at it. I don't see them doing that type of process with Rangers either. And I don't know. I think Rangers need it now. They do need investment. They do need a higher quality of player. But how many shows have we been on over the last couple of seasons talking about it's not what Rangers spend, it's how badly they have spent it. And that, I think, is the main avenue that they have to improve in terms of player trading. If they can get that right, not just in terms of spending lots of money, but spending it in a better way, that will immediately help Rangers. So you could say Rangers need X number of millions to go and win the league. They might not need that much if they can spend the budget that they do have in a proper, self-sustaining and successful manner. So I would be surprised if it's a huge splurge on transfers, because I don't really think it's needed. Other aspects, you're looking at best practice. Now, what can you pick up in terms of scouting, in terms of recruitment, in terms of medical, sports science, commercial, PR, all these aspects round about the football club. Can you tap into the 49ers Enterprises, their stable of investments? What can you pick up from various bits and bobs around the world from different areas? It's also not just Leeds that they've got a financial interest in. So I think that could be the longer term benefit for Rangers. Can the club be run better than it has been? Undoubtedly. You look at the way that Rangers are right now, it's stagnant. No, they have not kicked on after 55. Did not kick on after Seville. The managerial situation over recent seasons shows that. The player recruitment over recent seasons shows that. The silverware account over recent seasons shows that most damningly of all. So there is so much. There's so much room for improvement at Rangers, both on and off the field. And I think that's the exciting thing for fans. Yes, there's the lure of someone coming in and spending a bit of money, but if the club can just be operated in a proper way, that scope for improvement is just huge right now.
Yeah, lots of interesting points being made. Just a reminder, folks, if you want to get your comment in, you have to be a subscriber to the channel. It is totally free, remember. But if you're itching to get your comment in the chat, then please make sure you are subscribed. I love this from CGM55. Not getting carried away at all. He says, come on, Chris, tell us they're going to come and spend billions. Bellingham first signing. They're not going down. They're not as extravagant as that, unfortunately. But listen, I think it's certainly exciting times. There's a point from Martin Bain. I don't think it's that one. It says, how would it all work with financial fair play? It's not likely they'll be allowed to come in and give us a massive budget to spend. You mentioned there about sustainability and things like that, Chris. These guys know what they're doing at Leeds United. Interestingly, when I spoke to Kev Markey, who runs a fan site down at Leeds Mad, he says that they don't tend to sort of look for the limelight, that they just quietly go about their work in the background. And of course, the team are winning on the pitch, not spent extravagant amounts, even though that the wage bill, as you mentioned, is pretty high. But in terms of financial fair play, listen, I think that's something that they'll be mindful of. What do you make of this point here from Martin?
I think it's a very fair one, and one that I think a lot of the fans they're being lured in by the prospect of big money being spent. I think they should have that in mind. You can't do what you used to be able to do in terms of just throwing money at a football club. It does have to be done in a proper way. Does have to be done in a sustainable way. I think you will see investment being made in and around Ibrox as well. It's not just going to be all on the pitch. Again, there's a lot of room for improvement round about Ibrox, but they're clearly coming in here with a long-term plan. It's not a case of let's go in, spend a lot of money, and we'll have to win the league next season and have to win the Champions League the season after that. It's going to be a longer-term process. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you can't have initial success. The budget that Rangers have already should have been enough to win at least one of the cups and to challenge for Premiership this season. So if you spend your budget in a better way, Rangers should be able to have success on the pitch, and that can then actually be self-fulfilling, because you mentioned Celtic there earlier on. Look at the way that they've operated their transfer model. That then leads into further investment in the team, which then leads into domestic success, which leads into Champions League money, and all these things can snowball, and it can just evolve season after season. Rangers playing catch up because of seasons after seasons of failures and mistakes, but if they get it right, it can move on fairly quickly. I know the financial fair play side of it, or profit and sustainability rules now. Rangers were well within in the last set of accounts, are well within the actual framework. There's no concerns there at that stage, but it is something that the club are always wary of, and always have to have in the back of their mind, as do every club. And you look at examples of ownership that have a lot of money but can't really spend it. Just look at Newcastle. They could, in theory, go out and blow every team in the world out of the water in terms of their transfers. Can't do it because of the way that these rules are now structured. So it's one thing having an owner with very, very deep pockets, but it has to be a bit more of an evolution now, rather than just there's an open checkbook, go and spend it. So I think the Newcastle example is maybe one to keep in mind, but I think the Leeds example is the one we could also look a bit more closely at it, and look how they've operated down at Ellen Road. And barring a disaster over the next couple of weeks, that plan that they initially had when they first invested in the club and then took full control a couple of seasons ago, the Premier League was always in their sights. Taking them a season longer than it could have done after just failing last season. But I say, barring a disaster, they're going to be a Premier League club next term.
Yep, there's a great piece on the website, folks, on the Takeover from Kieran Canning. You can go and have a look at that. Really fascinating stuff in there. So I'd urge you to go and check it out. It explains why the US consortium have looked at Rangers as an investment opportunity. We'll take a couple of more points on this before we move on. Prod 1872 says Parag is big on maximising stadium potential. And Bob, just echoing that point, says they have had the benefit of 10k more seats to sell every match day. We need to address this as a priority. I know you and Johnny spoke on this. I think it was either last week or the week before, Chris, when the news was emerging and about the possibility of expanding Ibrox. I think that's probably a given at some point.
You'd imagine so. I think the comments that the previous guy mentioned there about Marat and how he sees a stadium. I can't remember if it was a Leeds podcast or a 49ers one or a business one, but our comments about how he sees a stadium and the financial benefits that you can get from your stadium. It's not just a case of you turn up potentially once a week, you get 50,000 people in, they watch the game and they go home. You have to maximise all the revenue there. Now, Rangers have also tried to do that of late with Edmiston House. I know a bone of contention amongst many of the supporters, but at least it was something within the stadium footprint. It was the board at that time trying to do something to address what had been a long-standing problem. Is there more work that could be done in that area? Definitely. Is there more that can be done to attract people to the stadium earlier, to convince them to spend more money there, to stay later? Definitely. I think there's a lot of, I mentioned scope for improvement on and off the pitch. Ibrox is an area that you could really do a lot more with. And that's even just in a kind of basic sense of tilting it up slightly. You look at the pavements outside or the road that goes around the perimeter. All of these things, yes, they'll cost money, but things like that, I know have been a real bugbear with the fans over the last few seasons. Put some new tarmac down, make sure that the brick is being cleaned, make sure the stairwells are being cleaned. Also, the roof always takes a bit of a beating online because it's got dirt on it and bird dirt on it and all that kind of stuff as well. So I think they could do a lot. And
sort the press gantry out would be good.
If the Wi-Fi worked every single game, that'd be smashing. To be fair, this season it has been okay. It has been okay this season, thankfully. Some of the European nights been a wee bit sketchy. We'll see how it is next week. But all of these things do make a big difference. So these people talk about like 1% making a big difference in a sporting sense. There's a lot of things that could just be done in and around the stadium just to bring it up to a different standard. The club actually invested in the media facilities last summer. Revamped the media room there, put a new interview room in there, so the room where you see the manager and players being in a press conference. That was an old area within the concourse that has been repurposed, and it has made a massive difference this season. So it's about these small things. I mentioned evolution earlier on. Can you just keep doing these small things to make it better? But I think in the big picture stuff, you talk about stadium expansion. I'm sure that's something that will be on the agenda once again, and plans will be formulated to try and bring Ibrox up to a higher capacity.
Yeah, it's exciting. There's no two ways about it. I'm excited at what could happen at Ibrox with the new owners in place if this takeover gets over the line, which certainly looks to be heading in the right direction. Let's get to some of the comments and we'll move on. I wanted to touch on this. Graham raises it here. He says, total support for our fellow Bear Calvin Bassey. No place in football for online abuse or racism. Stay strong, my friend. Real disturbing statement from Fulham following their game against Man United at the weekend. They released a statement saying that we are utterly appalled at the racist and homophobic abuse received and subsequently shared by Calvin Bassey on social media after yesterday's FA Cup tie against Manchester United. So, absolutely abhor that sort of stuff. It really is a blight on the game. And much love to Big Shirley, who's doing the business down there at Fulham, and I hope it doesn't affect him because he's a cracking big guy, absolutely sensational. spoke to him a few times, and tearing it up down there. So well done to Fulham, incidentally, over the weekend. But once a Ranger, always a Ranger, and all that. So love goes out to Big Calvin at this moment in time. You were at the game at Ibrox on Saturday, Chris. So that was dreadful, it's fair to say. More of the same, unfortunately. Heading into this game on Thursday, I know you're jetting out this afternoon to Istanbul. What Rangers are we going to get, do you reckon?
I've actually done quite well not to speak about the weekend because Stevie did the post-match show. I wasn't on the briefing yesterday. I was hoping a bit of takeover talk would get us through half an hour this morning and I wouldn't have to mention it again because, as you said there, it was just so bad. Nowhere near the standard. I think you could tell from Barry's post-match interviews and certainly his press conference just how upset he was at the performance, at the efforts of some of his players. Now he speaks a lot about making sure that they're aware of the standard and what's expected here. That was nowhere near it. Ironically, as we've seen before, I think as we've said before over the course of the season, you wouldn't completely rule them out or going over to Istanbul and getting a result on Thursday night. Could they win the game? That might be a stretch. I think if they could keep it tight enough, keep themselves in the tie, coming back to Ibrox next week, who knows? No, we've seen this situation before. We've seen Rangers pull off remarkable results at Ibrox before. You wouldn't completely rule it out. You wouldn't completely put it by them. But I think Barry's words when he spoke at the weekend, he was asked, what will a performance like that do against Fenerbahce and also against Celtic coming up as well? And he said they'll lose, and that's obvious. If Rangers don't raise it considerably, they've got no chance of staying in this tie, and they've got no chance of getting a result in the Old Firm game either. So the bar has been set very, very low this season. It has been set high at times. They need to hit those heights again if they're going to have any chance on Thursday night.
Yeah, I need a drastic improvement in performance levels of that. There is no doubt. Gorguts gets in touch. Not too sure if he's a Fenerbahce fan or having a laugh or maybe being realistic. He says, you guys are nuts. It's going to be like 7-0 Fenerbahce. As long as Rangers don't go over there and get beat heavily as a la Anderlecht. All we ask is they keep the tie alive. At Ibrox, you never know with that crowd behind you. Incidentally, they beat Anderlecht in the previous round. The only other home win they've had in the Europa League was on the opening day of the group stage. They beat Union San-Gilloise by 2-1. But they're not unbeatable, Chris. I know they're on a good run of form at this moment in time. They won at the weekend 3-0. But Rangers shouldn't be going there overawed or anything like that. You'd like to think that the results they've picked up, not only this season, but seasons gone by, can stand them in good stead heading out there.
I think that they've also got a history within this competition, and it has been a kind of talking point. Has been a bone of contention amongst the fans. Why can this side be so accomplished and be so impressive? Not just this team, but previous seasons as well. Why can they be so good against a higher quality of opposition, but you then come to your Motherwells or your St Mirrens or a number of domestic games and it's just not there? Is it an attitude problem? Is it a mentality problem? Is it a tactical problem? It's probably a combination of a lot of these things. As a squad, as a group of players who seem to like the European style of game, who like almost if they're the underdog rather than the favourite in a number of these games.
Yeah.
They do seem to rise to these occasions, which is great and which is fine, but that's ultimately not why you're at Rangers. You're there at Rangers to win as many games as possible and to win some silverware. That's not going to happen this season. Also, the Europa League is the only games of jeopardy. Obviously, out with the two Old Firms still on the go. It's a big night for Barry Ferguson. I think if you'd said to people just a few weeks ago, Jose Mourinho will be in one dugout and Barry will be in another dugout, you wouldn't get many people that have thought that would be a realistic prospect, but that's what's ahead. It's a huge challenge for Barry and obviously his staff. It's a big challenge for these players. It does have selection issues there because there's not an awful lot of guys in the best of form at present. So I'm really interested to see how it goes. Does he try and go full Walter? Does he try and shut up shop a wee bit and try and play it really tight, or do you stick to system, the game plan that, to be fair, has worked over the course of the European campaign. I don't think you can underestimate what an achievement it was from Rangers to actually qualify for this section in the manner that they did. We spoke a lot about it after the group stage ended. They got a really, really difficult set of fixtures. They came through it really impressively. They've more than deserved to be in this stage, but the task for them on Thursday is going to be difficult.
Well, I mean, they did finish 24th. They just made it through to the knockout stage by the skin of their teeth. So Rangers, of course, finished 8th. That's a remarkable achievement. Someone commented the other day there, Chris, about heading into these 2 games and whether you would rather have Philippe Clement in charge for these matches, given his exploits in Europe, or the current coaching staff. I mean, it's a hypothetical question, obviously, but would you have rather have Clement at the helm for these games?
I can see the theory behind it, but if you look at what has been on the table for Rangers over the last couple of weeks, what state would the team and the support have been in if Clement had remained in charge? We saw the anger after Queen's Park, saw the anger after Hearts, saw the anger after St Mirren that ultimately cost him his job. There's no guarantee that a Clement side would have come back in the manner that a Ferguson side did at Rugby Park. I think if Clement had still been there, there'd have been such this great cloud hanging over the club and the team. I think people would be looking forward to this one even less than a number of people already are. I don't think a lot of fans will give Rangers a big chance of emerging certainly victorious in this game on Thursday. In terms of the tie, I don't think you can rule them out. I'd be surprised if they go and win on Thursday night. They can keep it tight and can take it back to Ibrox, regardless of who the manager is. You're then relying on the Ibrox crowd and the sense of occasion and everything that goes in that. You're relying on that, I think, to carry the team through. So certainly in terms of experience and European tactics wise, I can see the theory of having Clement, but it's what would that extra couple of weeks have done. People were already at the end of their road with Phil and his style of play and his selections and just everything around the club at that stage. So I think the support are in a bit of a better place, but it's obviously still not a great place because it's been far from an acceptable season.
Yeah, Gorguts gets back in touch, says, I'm a Rangers supporter, bro. Love the channel. Thank you very much for saying so, buddy. And just an issue on the fans. We both heading out to Istanbul. Now, there's been a bit of confusion about ferrying supporters to the ground from a certain meeting point. I know my fan booked at a hotel after a Turkish journalist recommended a staying at the Kadıköy area, which is the Asian side of the city, literally about 200 yards away from the stadium, but heading over with my dad, and Rangers say it's a mandatory bus that you have to get. And incidentally, Rangers charging those people that are lucky enough to head over 20 quid, which I thought the club may have footed that bill. I'm not too sure if they could have done, but as a goodwill gesture just on the fans who have supported the team far and near and far, and of course given the season that has unfolded as well. But there you go, that's by the by. But the pickup location, if you are heading over to Istanbul, has been changed from Sultanahmet Square to Taksim Gezi Park, and which is quite a fair distance away from the original pickup point. The alteration comes at, of course, short notice, and that has been made at the request of local police. So many people, luckily I was able to cancel my hotel and book another one free of charge, but I know there's many not as fortunate as me that are going to have a bit of difficulty when they get out the stadium, and of course the fans are kept thinking an hour and a half to 2 hours after the final whistle, and then getting a bus back to Taksim Gezi Park, and then I'm not entirely sure or well aware of what the transport system is like at that time of night. It's going to be about 1 o'clock in the morning over there. I just hope that everyone can get back to their hotels and their accommodation safe and sound. But not ideal whatsoever. But the Rangers fans will be heading over in their numbers. I'm sure there'll be many on your plane, Chris. What's the plans tonight when you get to Istanbul? It's going to be pretty late on. Is it just straight to bed?
Could be the back of 1 or so local time by the time we actually get there. So get checked in, dump the bags. There's a couple of the boys actually heading out on a earlier flight. I think they get in about 8:30 or so, and they've already found a couple of local hotspots that stay open until the small hours. So we'll see how we're feeling later on, and then potentially head out. Press conferences tomorrow. Jose Mourinho speaking at 2:00 local time, and Rangers are scheduled to be back at 9 local time at night. So a long old day tomorrow. But myself and Josh will be on the show at some point tomorrow, and of course we'll have full press conference coverage from Mourinho and Barry Ferguson and the Rangers players. So hopefully Rangers are not delayed any on their travels tomorrow. Hopefully the Istanbul traffic is not too bad for them, and they can get there on time. Otherwise, a longer day will become even longer.
Yes, I get there tomorrow. I fly out from Manchester around about 7:15, so I'm sure there'll be many beers on that flight, and then I'll get a metro. I think that's been recommended, but very much looking forward to it. I just hope on match day that the bus situation is seamless. But having been on the trip in Nice recently, I'm envisaging a very rough sort of situation there. But hopefully I am proved wrong on that front. But we'll wrap up there. If you want to learn more about Fenerbahce, folks, I did speak to a Turkish football journalist, Sezer, who was absolutely fantastic. He gave us insight into what we can expect. That is available to all of you guys on the Extra channel. It will be made available to everyone around about 6:00 this evening. We'll try and record a Q&A later on this afternoon as well. So I think maybe a little bit later on, perhaps about 4:00, something like that. But I'll pop out the link on the community page as ever, and get your questions in. I'm sure there will be loads. Right, big thank you to Chris. Safe travels over to Turkey, and thank you to you all for tuning into the show as ever. And we'll speak to you later on. Bye for now.